In today's video, I want to share with you guys 5 reasons why someone might want to go to inpatient therapy or rehabilitation for weed detox or weed addiction. Now, I want to make it clear that the number one way people quit most substances is through a form of spontaneous self-recovery. That is, they just wake up one day and they quit. That's essentially what happened to myself after struggling for several years of addiction to nicotine, THC, energy drinks, and adult media content. Now, if you guys want to learn more about self-recovery methods and paths, be sure to check out the pinned comment or the video description to learn more about our paid and free Addiction Mindset recovery coaching programs. 5 reasons why you might want to check yourself into a rehab facility or consider rehab if you're addicted to weed. Reason number 1 would be extreme psychosis. And if this is something that you're suffering with, there's a good chance that you're not going to be aware of this situation. It's going to be a bunch of other people in your life telling you, hey, we don't know what to do with you anymore. We can't help you anymore. And this will be family, this will be friends, this will be your doctors. And they're saying this is out of our hands. We're out of options. We don't even know what to do. This situation is getting so bad. So in cases of extreme psychosis or psychotic behavior, especially ongoing psychotic behavior, which many times, unfortunately, with cannabis can have violent related tendencies or violence associated tendencies to it, I would highly recommend an inpatient rehab facility. Reason number 2 would be if you're suffering extreme physical symptoms of withdrawal. This is often the case in people who are struggling with a disease called Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome. This is where you have nonstop vomiting, sometimes 6-7 times an hour after every single time you eat. And if you have these extreme physical pains, these extreme physical symptoms, you're putting your body at risk of dehydration and malnutrition, and this can actually become life-threatening, as can a case of extreme psychosis if it's tied into, let's say, suicidal ideation or something like that. So this would be another scenario where you might be better off checking yourself into a detox facility so you can safely detox and make sure that you're still being provided with all the proper nutrients and that you just have a care team around you to make sure that you don't die. Another reason why someone might want to check into rehab would be as if they're struggling with extreme symptoms of suicidal ideation and depression. Again, this is one of those scenarios where you have someone who's interested in quitting smoking weed. Maybe psychosis is present, maybe it's not. They say, okay, I'm ready to quit, but by the way, I would rather kill myself than stop smoking weed. So I want to quit, but I would also rather be dead than quit. In a case like this, if this is something that you're personally struggling with or you know someone, this would be a good case for inpatient therapy or going to a rehab facility because, again, parents, friends, family, they're not going to know what to do with you. You need the help of trained professionals when it comes to that topic. Another reason why you might want to go to an inpatient facility is because perhaps you haven't developed any other skills along the way when it comes to coping with life. This could be coping with depression, coping with anxiety, coping with day-to-day stress, coping with a history of whatever it is you've been through in your life. If you don't have any skill sets to get through that, to cope, obviously quitting weed is going to be very challenging, and finding the right facility, finding a place that is going to teach you these skills, which I try and do here on this channel through our 900 something videos that we've put out on these topics. This is a point where you might want to go to rehab. If all you know is smoking weed or drinking alcohol or consuming substances to cope, and you've picked up no other skills along the way that you can implement day to day, you might want to go to an inpatient facility that's qualified to teach those skills. Another reason why, and this is reason number 5, and then I'm going to throw a bonus reason in here, is because your current environment is just impossible to quit in. And I'm going to talk about both the negatives and the positives of that statement. But let's say it's absolutely impossible for you to get sober with the people that you live with the friends that you're surrounded by, the work environment that you're in. If, let's say you work, maybe you're a bartender or you're in the industry where there's lots of substance use, whatever it may be. Getting out of that environment and getting into a more supportive environment in many cases can be a huge benefit of going to rehab. And not only is that a benefit, but in a lot of rehab facilities, people that work there, at least the better ones, they were people that went through the programs themselves and got better. So not only are you taking yourself out of your current environment and putting yourself in an environment that will make quitting more successful, but you're surrounded by people who have had success or who are starting to get success. And that can be very, very motivating, right? For not everyone, like I said, the number one way people quit drugs is self-recovery. They do it on their own. But for a lot of people, community and support and hearing the lived experiences of other people who have been in your shoes and who have been successful is a major, major part of becoming recovered, quitting drugs and never going back to them. Bonus tip number 5 or 6 that you might want to consider rehab is if all else has failed. Listen, you could spend the rest of your life saying, I'm going to wean off of weed slowly. I'm going to quit weed, one day at a time. You could spend the next 60 years doing the same thing that you're doing over and over and over and over again without getting results. And my question is, at that point, is it really even worth trying to quit? Like, wouldn't you just be better off just continuing to smoke and calling it a day and not stressing about quitting, not quitting, quitting, not quitting? Or if you're really sincere about quitting, wouldn't you be better off trying something that you haven't done before? Maybe that's a coaching call. Maybe it's trying our supplement products. Maybe it's downloading our book. Maybe it's going to an inpatient rehab facility. Maybe it's working with a therapist if that's what you feel you need. But try something different if everything else has failed you. And if everything's failed you except for inpatient therapy, this is a time to consider rehab. I will say there are some drawbacks to rehab. When I'm referencing a rehab or an inpatient facility, I'm referencing a place that is of high quality. And a lot of high quality places are very expensive. These places can cost you anywhere from 10 to, as much as $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a month in some scenarios is what I've seen from some of the really high-end rehabs. But it is what it is. If you want to succeed, then you're going to want to try and find the best care possible. Now, that's not to say that state-run rehabs or rehabs that work with your insurance aren't good also, because many of them are very good. But I will say when you're working with a private pay facility, sometimes you just get a higher level of care because the people there are super invested because they know that they're getting paid. Whereas sometimes when you're dealing with a state-run facility, the employees are really underpaid. Or when you're dealing with a health insurance-based facility, they're so caught up trying to get the money. They're more focused on trying to get the money from the insurance than they are in working with the people. And I am not talking about every facility out there. This is a very blanket statement, okay, that I'm making. So I'm always a fan of private facilities because I will say there are some really, really, really crappy facilities. The treatment industry as a whole, I would say, is probably more on the side of crappy than good. So you really have to do diligence if you're picking out a rehab and you're trying to figure out where to go. And I'm just going to be honest, chances are the nicer ones, the ones that really make a lot of time worth it, are your best bet. Now, I'll throw something else out there too. On the complete flip side of this, there's been people who have been arrested, gone to jail, and jail wound up being their rehabilitation program. That's where they wound up getting off drugs. And it was one of the worst experiences a person could imagine. So I'm just throwing that out there. It doesn't need to be super high end. A lot of it still comes down to your mindset. And that brings me to the next point. Rehab is not a miracle cure. Parents will send their kids to rehab, or someone will go to rehab and they think, this is it, it's done, it's over. Yes, lots of people have gone to rehab and they've remained sober for, forever, right? They just quit, they became recovered. But sometimes that's not the case. There are countless people that I have worked with who have been in and out of countless rehab facilities time and time again. And the sad thing is, some of these rehab facilities still preach that relapse can be and, most likely will be part of the process. I understand that. I get it that a lot of people relapse, but I don't know, when you have a personal investment in it of $30,000 and it's like, yeah, you're probably going to relapse. By the way, hey, just come back and sign up with our rehab facility again. I don't know about that. I don't know. I think we say that too much. But so there's that. Understand though, yes, rehab is not necessarily a cure-all be-all. You still have to do all the work and implement all the things that you learned in rehab once you come out. And then the last thing I'll say, and this goes to that environment comment that I made earlier. On one side, it's good to be removed from your current environment, but on another side, there's some negatives. Because unless you really make the most or draw a lot out of that inpatient rehab experience, when you come back home to your family stress, your work stress, your life, the day-to-day stressors, if you didn't pick up things or implement things that you picked up at rehab when you get back, you're going to relapse. Because for a lot of people, when they go to a high-end rehab, there's a swimming pool, there's games, you're getting therapy, you're getting yoga. You are like a center of attention. And for a lot of people, this is not good. And this is why we have such low success rates. In rehab, especially in a private rehab, if you're paying $30,000, $60,000 a month, everyone sincerely cares about you. And even if they don't sincerely care, they really want to see you succeed because you're paying a lot of money to be there. Now you come back out in real life to the real world where most people don't actually care whether or not you get sober outside of your immediate family and maybe some significant others, maybe some close friends. The world keeps spinning. The problems keep happening. Your job continues on. So then you get kind of slapped across the face when you're back in reality sober as compared to when you were in the rehab, right? So this is all stuff to consider. And again, I'm a fan of rehabs. I'm going to have a buddy of mine on the channel who actually recently opened up a six patient rehab facility soon to talk about what's rehab look like, what are the ins and outs of it. So I'm a fan. But just understand the positives, the drawbacks, and the situations where rehab might be absolutely necessary. But knowing above all else, the number one way people quit drugs is through self-recovery. They wake up one day, they have a shift in mindset, and they're done. Yes, absolutely. Supplements can help. Absolutely. Therapy, coaching, all that stuff can help. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you and the mindset and the choices that you make going forward. That's all that matters. All right, guys, good luck. Hit up the comments with questions, and I'll try and respond to as many as I can.